Hello, my name is Jonathan Russell, and I'm going to be going over the data review for Amana Academy, and it specifically focuses on grades 3 through 8 and some of the assessments and information that we have on the school. So the purpose of this presentation is to inform all stakeholders of how the school is currently performing in comparison to previous years and compared to other top performing schools in North Fulton County. So a little bit about that is any stakeholder would be the board of directors, the administrative team, our executive directors, teachers, teacher leaders, anyone that kind of comes in contact with any of the students at our school and has an impact on their learning. So the data also informs Amana Academy of what content areas and demographics the school should focus on to improve, specifically looking at ELA and math. And it will be used to continue data analysis to establish effective classroom goals and strategies and to pinpoint strengths and weaknesses according to the current instruction. So this is looking a little bit at the teacher information at Amana Academy. There are a total of 52 teachers. That's either specials, connections, and classroom teachers. And this is kind of the breakdown of those teachers. As you can see, there's a pretty good mix and a pretty good representation of different cultures and countries represented. And experience is also pretty diverse. It's interesting that we don't really have any teachers above 15 years at the school. But from the data you'll see coming up, it doesn't really have an impact on student learning. So this is looking at the free and reduced lunch of the elementary students from grades 3 through 5. And we can see the impact that it had on students from ELA and math and how they kind of achieved overall. So this is looking at 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. The purple line, purple bar is going to be Amana Academy. The burnt orange one is kind of the state, and the blue is Fulton County, and then we have a few different schools represented as well. So as you can see, the students that are on free and reduced lunch are performing at much higher levels than other students in the county and in the state. So that's pretty impressive for our students. And again, we have free and reduced lunch for middle school this time. We have the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, again for ELA and math. For 6th grade, the bars are a little bit closer. Our math scores aren't as proficient compared to the rest of the county, the rest of the state, other schools in the area. But with 7th and 8th grade, we are either on par or above the rest of the county. So continuing to dive right into it, this is looking at the ELA performance for over the years. And this is looking specifically at students that are proficient and distinguished on the ELA portion over the past 3 years. So some strengths is that the 3rd grade team had significant increases between the past 2 years, and 8th grade also recovered and made some big increases as well. Something that is a bit of a weakness is seeing that the students in 6th grade had a slight decrease in proficiency, and they dropped from a 66% down to a 53%. So that's something that the school is going to need to consider and look into a little bit more. This is again looking at ELA proficiency by the cohort. So this time we're following the grade. So in 4th grade, these students moved from 3rd to 4th grade, 4th to 5th, kind of continuing that trend. So that's why we don't see a yellow bar, the 2015 to 2016 for 4th grade, because they did not take the milestones in 2nd grade. So yeah, the 3rd grade did not have that due to the previous levels. 8th grade continues to have significant growth as they made that cohort jump to 8th grade, and they had 54% proficiency in 7th grade, and now they have a 78 proficiency in ELA, which is really good growth to see. Seventh grade is something to consider there with the students that were there in 2017-2018 school year had a bit of a decline, and that's again something that was shown on the previous graph and something that needs to be considered as students move forward. So this is looking at the math proficiency, again looking at level 3 and 4, so that's proficient and distinguished on the Georgia milestones. Again, third grade had great growth. They went from a 48% to a 76% percentile. So again, great growth there. Fifth grade had a significant growth between the 2016-17 and the 17-18, increasing from a 35% to a 69% proficiency. So again, that's some pretty big growth, and so whatever's working in those grades, the school is going to be looking into a little bit more and seeing what kind of accommodations they made and how they taught the instructions during the school year and how the students performed so well. Again, sixth grade had some decreases there, and they dropped 1 point, so that's not the end of the world. It's kind of staying level. We want to see growth though. And then eighth grade had a bit of a drop from a 60% to a 48%, so that's something that the school again needs to look into. And again, this is going by the cohort, so again, that's why you don't see the 15-16 for the fourth grade. As you can see, pretty much everyone made some pretty good growth over the last year for their cohort. All the students kind of grew in math. Not as big as jumps as we saw in the ELA. However, it's all still good growth, and it's just going to be a challenge to keep pushing students and getting them to continue growing in the math milestones. So this is going to be looking at the subgroups for the Georgia milestones, only looking at the 2017-2018 school year. So blue is going to be just general ed students. Red is the English language learners, English second language students, and then the green is going to be our SPED population. So as we can see, the 48% of ELL students and 49% of SPED students are scoring in the developing category on ELL or ELA Georgia milestones, which isn't terrible. That's passing. That's good information. That's about 50% of the students are performing there, which is really good information. And then we had 44% of students at Amana Academy scoring at the proficient category of the milestones as well. So we can see that there's a bit of a gap between the ELL and the SPED students going from there, just between a level 2 and a level 3. So a question that the school might want to be looking into is, why is there this gap? How can we close this gap? How can we support our students with different accommodations and different needs, and how can we bring them to level 3 as well? Because when we look at distinguished, the level 4, we have 0 students with special education needs. They scored in 0% of them scored in the distinguished area, which is a concern, and we had a much smaller 5% of our ELL population scoring there as well. So again, we're trying to find a way to close these gaps. So this time we're looking at the math subgroup, and we have 46% of our EL students and 23% of our SPED population scoring at the proficient area. So in math, we're scoring a little bit stronger. So that's really a positive thing. That's a strength for the school. And again, we want to try and move our students from the beginning over to that distinguished area. So that's a positive thing for us. And then we had 43% of students at Amana Academy, just in general population, scoring in that proficient category again. Or excuse me, 48%. So it's just, again, trying to move our students towards distinguished. How can we differentiate the instruction to better support these students, better get them to meet the needs of the test, and getting them to grow and show that they know this information. And another positive is that 3% of the SPED students scored in the distinguished category of the Math Georgia milestones. It's not a lot. It's not an outstanding number or anything like that. We would like to see probably closer to that 10% for maybe the next few years. However, compared to ELA, there are some students who are scoring in this area, which is a positive thing for the school. So some next steps, some questions maybe the school should be asking. How can Amana Academy continue to use this information to operate in the top % of Fulton County? Amana Academy is a public charter school, so there are some challenges that come along with that. However, that has not stopped the school from being a top performer. I think in the top 5% of Fulton County, which is a big deal for any charter school and for Amana Academy. So how can they continue to operate at this level, and how can they use this information to do that? How can the school, Amana Academy, make adjustments to make growth instead of decreases in progress? So with the 6th grade and the 8th grade students that had a few gaps, some learning gaps there, how can they take this data and make the proper adjustments to make sure that all students are getting what they need? How can we continue to support students with free and reduced lunch? And how can we support our ELL and our SPED students to make sure that they're getting what they need and continuing to score in the level 3 and level 4 range on the test as well? And finally, how can Amana Academy use this data to drive instruction? So when we relay this information back to teachers and we dig into this data, how can we take that and use it across the school, not just in grades 3 through 8, but also in the K2 realm? How can those teachers use this information to support and drive instruction and help them understand that they're a part of this process? It doesn't just start in 3rd grade. And finally, how can Amana Academy use this data to track specific student growth, right? How can we look into the specific student and track their progress from grade level to grade level and see what kind of learning gaps and showing mastery throughout there? Thank you very much.